All right, so I'm going to attempt to do a full reading of the Pumpkin Patch Murders, sort of as a audio book video type thing for people to listen to. Several people have asked me if I was going to have an audio book available. I don't know how to do any of that or whatever. So I figured I would do it on my own. I wanted to do it anyway, being just coming from me, my voice, and I can kind of like narrate it and talk about things as I'm going. Um, I'm doing this off of a TikTok green screen app. Wish me luck. So I don't want to waste any more time. I'll just get right into it. And as I read along, I'm going to swap out the photos that go in the book. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Page 1, Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is titled Chocolate, Spit, and Blood. Now, in your mind, I want you to follow me into the strange house. Not because it's strange, but because it's the family's last name. It's an old, dirty, unkept, small, 2-bedroom, 1-bath home on the poor side of Patchville. It still has the original wood panel walls, filthy carpet full of dirt and crumbs. You can smell the mold soon as you walk in this place. We see a young 7-year-old boy named Julian. He's extremely skinny with messy bed hair, sitting Indian style glued to the TV, eating his usual meal of junk food consisting of candy, chips, or cereal, most of which he steals out of Ricky's work van due to his mother Tammy never cooking or having food in the house. Ricky is his mom's off and on live-in boyfriend. He's a fairly large man with bad anger issues and a love for alcohol. He stands over 6'5", 260 pounds, and when he's drunk, it's like a train with no brakes on the loose. He works as a vendor for a local snack machine distributor called Dick Brothers Vending. Hence why they call him Rick the Dick or Cock of the Block. Tammy never cooks or has food in the house, so Julian always has to steal chips and candy out of the back of Rick's van late at night, 'cause he's always starving. His only protein intake is when he scores beef jerky. He lives with the type of hunger that makes you feel nauseous and like you're dying. Julian's mother, Tammy Lynn, is basically a drug addict that sleeps with many men a week to get by with bills and drugs, which is why she never pays attention to her son. She buys him a cheap toy here and there to make up for anything she feels sorry for. Basically, she just lets the television raise him. The kid can recite every word to every episode on every TV show playing. From watching so many shows, Julian sees how real family homes operate, how parents care and have love for their children on these shows. Often when looking in the mirror, he wonders why he's not loved or have a nice family structure. All he knows and sees is Rick, and when he's working, there's several different men showing up at the house throughout the week late at night to greet his mom, and then they head straight to her room, leaving Julian alone with the TV while she gets her fix of drugs in exchange for sex. Julian has been eating junk food his whole life. He's skinny as hell, and his teeth are ruined, almost completely gone. He has lost most of them from cavities. Tammy Lynn never, ever has taken him to the dentist or even had insurance. She's never had a job. Basically, she lives on child support and selling herself. Due to a lack of proper food and care, Julian has missed tons of school from being sick and unhealthy. One night, the boy was so hungry, he started getting dizzy and blacking out. He went to his mother's room and knocked, saying he felt like passing out. She was in there with Rick and just yells at him. "Julian, go watch the damn TV and heat up a leftover TV dinner in the microwave." And with a sad face, Julian says, "Okay." He quietly went searching for Rick's van keys. Outside, he scavenged through Ricky's van looking for snacks to eat. It was Friday, Rick's busiest delivery day, so the van was basically empty. Although, as he was hopping out, he noticed under the seat a half-open candy bar. He grabs the bar and reads the label, finding the date. He says out loud, "Expired 2 years ago. Mother fudge." He looks closely, and there's mold growing on parts of it, and it looks like bugs or something has been eating off of it. With a frown upon his face and a growling stomach. Now, mind you, he has very few teeth left, so as he bites into the bar, some of his front teeth are brittle and they start cracking. He raises his hands to his mouth to spit out the pieces of teeth mixed with chocolate and blood. That pushed the boy over his mental limit. He ran inside, straight to the bathroom, to look into the dirty mirror at the damage. He grabs the brown, filthy hand towel to wipe the mirror and take a glance. Before he looks, he closes his eyes in hopes that it isn't too bad, and with a big sigh, he slowly opens them to look at his almost toothless mouth of gums dripping with chocolate, spit, and blood. He then drops to his knees and begins crying and screaming. Now, he's already been teased his whole life. From being bullied, he skipped school so much that it caused him to fail twice already. And he thinks once the kids see this, it will be the end of him. The next school day, the poor boy begins to hide in shame of looking like a toothless grandpa. And each day, he finds things to wear covering himself, hiding from the world. He wears hoodies to cover his head, any type of random mask he can find to hide behind, and even paints his face with cheap acrylic paint that causes a rash. After school one day, he's watching TV and we hear his mom say, "Julian, get your damn hoodie on. We're going to Jacko's. I have to fill up the car." And no, you're not getting any bullshit, so don't even think about it. Now, Julian's eyes glow because he knows they have snacks and his favorite aisle of weird, creepy masks and a comic book section at Jacko's. As you can see, this image here is pretty much the boy in school hiding himself, getting teased every day, just going through it, you know. Tammy waits at the door and yells one more time, "Julian, get the fuck in the car now." He comes running with a hoodie and his face painted ghost white with black around the eyes and mouth like a skeleton. Off they go into the beat-up 1987 Monte Carlo with enough smoke coming out the back end, making it hard for anyone behind them to see the road. They finally pull into the gas station store, and Julian's head is peeking above the door window, staring at the tall, pumpkin-headed mascot with a black suit and cape on, handing out balloons to the children. He stands next to the Jacko mascot, staring up. The pumpkin looks down, and with a voice that sounds like a scratchy mechanical tape recorder, it says, "Welcome to Jacko's. Let's see that big pumpkin smile." Hands Julian a balloon, but the boy is frozen in a daze. He's scared, takes off Okay, so where I left off, Julian takes off from his first encounter of Jacko, hands him a balloon. He takes off running into the store, scared. So let's get back into it. Um, After pumping gas, Tammy yells, "Julian, get your ass in the car." Aggravated, she takes off looking for him. By this time, he's deep into the comic rack, rapidly scanning through every book, ripping out his favorite pages and stuffing them into his pocket, since Tammy won't buy him anything. Off he goes to the mask aisle, trying on everything, looking in the mirror, making himself feel better to be hidden behind a mask. He looks around for anyone coming and tries to stuff a rubber mask in his pants leg. As he gets it in, Tammy backslaps him across the head and pulls him by the ear, saying, "You think I got time to be playing games? Get your ass on, boy." Before walking out of the store, she says, "Ooh, I need some more smokes and a TV dinner." They walk out of the store, and the pumpkin man is waving, repeating the same thing again like a broken record. "Welcome to Jacko's. Let's see that big pumpkin smile." Tammy says out loud, "What a fucking loser. Get a real job, jerko." She pushes the boy into the back seat. "Get your damn seatbelt on." As he goes in the car, he turns around to look, and the big-headed mascot was right behind his mom. He screams and jumps into the back seat. Tammy says, "What the hell is wrong with you, you idiot?" He points behind her in shock, unable to speak. Tammy quickly turns around to absolutely nothing and says, "Keep playing with me, boy. I'm gonna make your ass black and blue." Here I have a scene of him just checking out comic books and Mask. He loves comics and, obviously the Mask to hide himself. Here we see the boy every day just wasting away eating junk food, watching TV. No one paying attention to him, doing anything with him, just wasting away. All right. A few days later, while Julian's watching TV, Rick's in the kitchen fussing with Tammy about some kind of money issues over bills. Then Julian overhears his name. Rick says, "I'm sick of dumping my paychecks and rent here for you too. Look at that worthless little shit. Look at that worthless little shit stain over there. He does nothing all day besides watch the fucking TV I pay for. This kid can't even play a single sport. What kind of a man is he gonna be? He's already ugly as a dog's ass." Tammy was also speeding during this and starts flipping out. She takes a full hot coffee pot and throws it at Rick. It just misses him, smashing against the wall right behind him, splashing hot coffee, burning his skin with pieces of glass, cutting him. In a rage, Rick screams out, "You fucking $2 whore." He rips the rotary dial phone off the wall with the cord and takes off after her in the kitchen. He backhands her with his big bear paw. She turns, clutching her long nails in him, and scratches him, causing major pain and bleeding. He finally gets her down and gets the cord around her neck, choking the shit out of her on the ground. As you can see, she's turning blue right there. Young Julian had his fingers in his ears and his eyes closed on his knees, terrified. He opens them to see Rick choking his mother out on the ground. She's struggling to breathe, turning blue. He gets up thinking fast. He grabs the glass goldfish bowl, and runs up behind them. He raises it high in the air and then he crashes it down on Rick's head, smashing it and gashing him up, causing him to bleed badly. Rick blanks out for a minute, and then in a rage, gets up, taking off after Julian. He runs to his room and locks the door. But Rick kicks it wide open and grabs him by the throat, slamming him against the wall, and starts pulverizing the young boy. Once the boy is unconscious from the blows to the head, Rick realizes what he's doing and drops him. He takes off, grabbing whatever clothes he can, and as fast as he can, he heads to his van to speed away before the cops show up. All right, several minutes have passed, and Tammy's coming down off her high, being choked out. She walks around the house trying to figure out what happened and yells out for her son. She finds the boy laying in his room where Rick left him, face down in a small puddle of blood. She turns him over screaming and sees his face black and blue bleeding. She holds him, crying, saying, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll never let another man around you in our home." But as we know, this woman is a hot fire that can't be put out. And I'm sure Rick will eventually be back in the picture. As time passes, the revolving front door remained with men in and out like always. Nothing ever changed. Neglect the boy, stay high, and sleep around. Well, folks, this is the end of chapter 1. Now might be a good time to take a break, grab a snack, use the bathroom, or even decide if you want to continue this unfortunate boy's life story. Trust me, it gets worse. This isn't a hero saves the day happy ending. This shit gets real. So in the book, I added like in between things, in between chapters, like a narrator would be talking in a movie. Like I was like Samuel L. Jackson or Morgan Freeman or some shit. I thought it would be pretty cool. Chapter 2. Welcome to Jacko's. Years later, as Julian became a teen, he worked out in the patch fields and at Jacko's Gas and Gifts as a stock boy. The gas station is pretty much the last stop you can get food, gas, and pumpkin Halloween-themed souvenirs and costumes on your way to the festival fair down the road. It's located in a town called Patchville. They are known for one major event every year, the Fall Fest. The town makes enough and survives off of this event for the rest of the year. This festival weekend is known for drawing in lots of out-of-town folks, and on the same weekend, they have a concert night with upcoming bands to help draw a crowd. Tons of rides, food vendors, haunted tours, haunted houses, and its famous pumpkin patch where world record-sized pumpkins are grown. There's a few employees at Jacko's during the day, but the night shift is where it all goes down. It's where the town's underage teens can get their beer and smokes freely when you slide a $20 bill tip to the worker. And for a wilder night, you can get almost any kind of drug out the back door. The night shift at Jacko's has to have at least 2 workers at all times, and a third on the busy weekends. Late night stops at Jacko's, you'll run into the night shift manager, delivery driver, Trent Casper. He's a real slick character. If you're underage, you can slide him some money, rack up all the beer you can afford. Also, he's the one that sells any types of drugs you need out the back door. He also delivers in the Jacko's delivery hearse. This is a page, just some shots, him working in the store. Got the candy bars from Jacko's they sell. Gas pump. All right, back to the story. Another wild story about Trent. He was taking out the trash one night and heard screaming and crying behind the dumpster in the field out back behind Jacko's. As he got closer, he noticed it was a small baby boy in the car seat. Shocked and high, he took him inside, and there was a note attached to the car seat saying, "Please take care of my baby." As you can see, the car seat behind the dumpster, and then the note that he found. That was all the note said. Well, that night, this kid was in luck, because Trent had this new woman hanging out at the store that he was trying to show off in front of. And when he took the car seat in, this chick was so into the kid that instead of calling the police for the child, he used it as bait and took it home, knowing that she would follow along to help out, and he could ease her into his bed later on. So, long story short, what happened, and after that night, Trent's mom watched over the kid and pretty much became his guardian. Well, with the kid living and being around Trent all the time, hanging out at the store during his shifts, this kid turned out to be bad as hell. As he got a little older, he was taught by Trent how to pickpocket customers, and he was stealing anything he could out of cars in the parking lot. During Halloween, he was caught holding up kids for their loads of candy with a fake gun, which is how he got the name Jack Boy. Some days, if you stop by the store, Jack Boy is there with Trent wearing costumes and trying to hustle customers out of some cash. Still to this day, the kid's real name and birth parents are unknown. All right, back at work, Trent runs the register while Hector, the other night shift guy, is the stocker janitor. Being under Trent, he takes a lot of shit, not by choice. He eats it due to being the only job he can get. Now Hector, we believe, is from Mexico. So how he ended up in this small town, you may ask, only God knows. But he found a job here with no requirements and is under the radar. Trent is always fucking with Hector by calling him bad names and words in Spanish, or hiding behind the shelves, jump scaring the shit out of Hector while he's working with the Halloween mask that they sell in the store. Now, Julian recently was hired on part-time for the night shift, since his mom, Tammy Lynn, is one of Trent's many women that he uses and abuses. She gets most of her dope from him, and now her boy got a job. During Julian's first week, he's seen his mom at least 7 times at work. And Trent gets him to cover the front, while he tells him that he and his mom are in the back checking inventory. Actually, Tammy's letting Trent in between her legs in exchange for some powder. During the night, Hector and Julian are always goofing off on shift. They indulge in free food off the shelves, and they enjoy scamming through porno magazines, ripping out their favorite pages for the bathroom material. Since working there, the two have become close friends, and Hector has kind of taken an older brother type of role to Julian. As he can see, the kid has had a rough life being bullied. So Hector's kind of like watching over the boy because he sees this kid gets fucked with all the time. All right, you've made it to chapter 3. I'm guessing it's getting interesting. We were introduced to some new people like Slimeball Trent and his illegally adopted kid Jack Boy, and Hector. Chapter 3, Halloween Havoc. A few weeks pass and the upcoming Halloween Fall Fest is nearing. So the employees all have tons of prep work and stocking to do. Tons of tourists will be flocking to the festivals for the famous pumpkin patch, concerts, food, rides, haunted houses. Since Jacko's is the last stop before you get to the festival grounds, none of those night shift clowns ever get to go to the festival. It's the worst job to have at this time of the year. The festival lasts from Wednesday to Sunday. On the first night, things begin to get out of hand. Hot boy Trent is pissed off that he has to work and knows he has to get to the fair so he won't miss out on all the drug sales and chasing after all the fine out of town females that's going to flock to the festival. Well, the shift started about 2 hours ago, and Tammy Lynn comes strolling into the busy store wearing a slutty outfit with a heavy fake fur coat over it. All right. She yells out at Trent, "I won 3 free tickets to Halloween Havoc. It's a big concert event connected to the haunted house at the convention center. Everybody's talking about these bands playing. It's Phantoms in the Attic, Dead Poets, and Dead Sled Funeral Company. I want to check that shit out." Tammy uses her slutty outfit, bending over the ice cream cooler to get Trent worked up and bothered, and to make him want her, knowing she could score some more dope in one hell of a night. She also brought along her friend Jamie and begins to whisper in Trent's ear that he could fuck the both of them in the back of the shop delivery hearse for 2 little baggies of meth, as you can see in this photo. Trent glances over at her friend Jamie, and his dirty thoughts start rolling. He smirks with his shitty grin and toothpick in his mouth. He clocks out, and then he looks at Julian and says, "Hey Frankenstein, you're in charge. I gotta give your mama a ride," laughing hauntingly. Trent walks out, tossing products off of the shelf, telling Hector, "Andale cabron, pick it up." Hector then throws the mop down, screaming in anger, "Pinche gringo, chinga su madre." It's like, "You fucking white guy, fuck your mama." Hector picks up the bags off the ground, looks at it, and he says, "Who the fuck eats candy corn? It's fucking trash." As the 3 walk out the store around back to the delivery hearse parked, Tammy says, "Hold up, I gotta pee." She says, "Hold up, I gotta pee." She jogs around the dumpster to squat down and piss like the filthy dog she is. And as she's pissing, she hears a can rattle. She yells, "Trent, stay away. I'm trying to piss. I'm almost done. You could lick me clean after." She pulls up her panties and turns to walk right into a black caped figure, tall. She screams, looking up. As she backs up and stares at the huge pumpkin-head mascot, it says in the strange voice, "Welcome to Jacko's. Let's see that big pumpkin smile." She runs to the hearse, banging on the window. Trent hops out, pulling his pants up, because the friend was already in the hearse, slurping his Twinkie down. He says, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" She can't speak, and she points towards the dumpster. He turns to look, and there's nothing there. He says, "Get your crackhead ass back in the car and shut up if you want this speed." She hops in, and the 3 begin to dive into a drug-fueled orgy, steaming up the windows and shaking the hearse for about 45 minutes. Then the hearse starts up and flies out of the parking lot sideways, smoking the tires. Hot boy Trent on the loose. All right, Trent and the mom and the friend just hauled ass out the back. Let's go back into the store. Now, with Trent gone, we have the Toothless Wonder at the register and Hector stocking, It's bound to have shit go downhill the first night of this busy weekend. A few hours have passed with non-stop customers and the duo taking turns going in the back watching the porn that Trent had playing in the manager's office while he was banging Tammy. They finally had a quiet few minutes and this group of high school teens come in acting crazy, showing off, messing up shelves, tossing things, laughing, fucking with the dynamic duo's night, keeping them busy till they finally get them to leave. Now, Jacko's is open 24 hours and the festival shuts down at 2 a.m. Around 11 p.m., another group of guys come in there showing off in front of the girls with them. They try to buy some alcohol, which Trent, he would usually sell them beer for a $20 tip, but Julian was trying to do his job and asked them for ID. And the guys get pissed off since they're all of age but didn't have licenses. They already buzzed up and full of cocaine. Once he asked for the ID, they started to get rowdy, tossing items off the shelves, breaking shit, making a huge scene. Julian panics and grabs the phone to call the police. But the main guy yells, "Who you calling, Grandpa?" Hence Julian's missing teeth. He says, "My dad works at the sheriff's office." They start laughing louder and they continue teasing and making fun of Julian, saying, "Come here, bitch boy. I bet he gives good head." Another guy walked behind the counter and smacks the shit out of him behind the head, saying, "Damn, you're an ugly fucker." Julian breaks down because it triggered his childhood memories of being teased. He freaks out and instantly runs to the mask aisle, putting on a mask to hide. But the teens grab whatever they want and head out the store. Before getting in the truck, they throw a brick through one of the windows and take off burning out. As you can see, I kind of pieced together an image page of the guys running out, bashing the window. Let's see. The whole time Hector was in the bathroom, he heard the window break and ran out from out the back towards Julian, trying to comfort him, saying, "Calm down, mijo. It's okay, man. Take the rest of the night off. I can handle this by myself." He kept trying to calm down Julian, telling him to take the rest of the night off, that he could hold down the store. But he had no success. Julian was sitting behind the register, humiliated, rocking back and forth, heavy breathing, tears and snot falling from behind the mask that he got off the shelf. He stands up, towering over Hector, as you could see the tears behind his mask falling, and he walks out of the store to the back to grab his bicycle. As he heads towards the road, he looks up at the sign, which has arrows pointing only two ways, one towards the town, the other one towards the Fall Fest. He remembered his mom heading to the fair, so he starts to head that way in hopes of getting to her for comfort, since she's the only family member he has. The Fall Fest is a mile down from Jacko's, and Julian is pretty much pedaling in the dark alone and scared. As he gets about half-mile down to the fair, he hears a loud vehicle approaching and sees the headlights. He pulls over to the side by the ditch to hide and avoid getting hit. Unfortunately, it's the boys in a huge pickup truck with loud music. As they get closer, they see the reflection of the pedals on the bike, and one of them yells out, "Hey, look, it's that goofy fuck from the store." As they pass him up, the driver slams on the brakes, and one of the girls say, "Oh, come on, leave him alone. I want to get back to the party in town." The other two drunk guys say, "Fuck that, we got plenty of time. Let's get this clown." They hop out of the truck. One of them grabs the bat and the rope out the back of the truck. Julian's eyes bulge in fear. He throws his bike down and takes off running into the wooded area. The driver yells, "Get that fucker!" The two goons run after him and catch up to Julian, throwing a leg sweep, knocking him clean off his feet. He falls hard in the grass and rubble, causing brush burns and gashes. The goons stand above him, yelling in joy as if they just scored a touchdown. They start kicking him. One of them starts beating his face in with punches. He still had the mask on, getting pulverized with blood seeping through the holes. Parts of the mask cracked, stabbing into his face. The driver finally catches up after leaving the girls back at the truck yelling. All right. The driver walks up and he says, "Give me the bat." He starts wailing on Julian's body. All you hear is bones breaking. And with one last good swing across his jaw, breaking it completely, he yells, "Tie him up while I get the truck." They tie up Julian's feet. As Evan backs up the truck, the girls yell out, "Are you fucking crazy? You're a psycho." The truck stops and they tie the rope to the bumper. The guy starts counting down. As they get to 1, he slams the gas and takes off, dragging Julian's body about 30 feet through a rough wooded area. Rocks and sticks cutting, stabbing, and causing serious damage. They laugh and joke as they untie him and haul ass, leaving him beaten, broken boy's body there. Leaving the beaten, broken boy's body there. I don't know how people read audio books. My fucking throat's drying out. Okay, so as you can see in that top corner and in the bottom, as we take an overhead view of Julian laying there in the dark, in the rubble, on his back, face up to the sky, you can hear him taking heavy breaths, gurgling blood, and wheezing sounds. Beat to shit, but still alive, he closes his eyes and has a flashback and sees himself as a young boy with the older version of himself, sort of guiding, looking over him, telling him what's ahead. He starts imagining his haunted life and all the shit that he has been through. The pain, the broken home, the bullying, starving, being poor, a life of torture. In his head, he prays that this is the end. He sees himself in a cave, yelling to the top of his lungs, "I don't want to do this anymore. Please, I beg you, take me away." After about an hour, he fights to stand up and drags himself back to the highway to get his bike. But he's too fucked up to even ride the bike. He then begins to zombie walk back half a mile to Jacko's, where Hector is still working. All right. Back at the store, Hector was watching the news at the register, waiting for time to pass till he can clock out for the morning shift to take over. He glances towards the front of the road and notices something moving, crawling in the road. He takes off outside to see what it is. As he approaches the body, he yells, "Julian, amigo, ¿qué pasó?" He runs back to get the stock cart to carry Julian back in the store. He props the boy up on the table in the stock room, checking the half-dead boy out. He asks him what happened. Julian, unable to talk with a broken jaw, he moans. Hector secures him on the table and heads back to the counter because he hears some customers walk in. It's 2 of the goons and 1 of the girls back for a beer run. Not knowing what happened, he greets them and notices they are drunk. He overhears them laughing, saying something about how he thinks his hand is broken, and the other guy saying, "How you think that All right, back to the story. Hector came into the front of the store. Not knowing what happened, he greets the the guys and notices they're drunk. He overhears them laughing, saying something about how he thinks his hand's broken. And the other one saying, how you think that loser's face felt, laughing out loud. As they get to the register to check out 2 cases of beer, and Hector asks, hey gringo, what happened to your hands? They look bad. They laugh and they say, nothing, just a little scuffle. And they take off out the store with the beer. A few minutes later, Hector starts to realize maybe they may have been the ones to beat the shit out of Julian. He runs to the back where Julian can now sit up, but talking is way out of the question. He tells him, shake your head yes or no. He rewinds the security cameras and shows them. Did they do this to you? Julian shakes his head in a half-ass yes motion. Hector screams. And he starts hitting on the wall saying, Puta la madre, in a rage. He looks at Julian and he says, I'll get those motherfuckers for this. You don't know me, man. Now, what and who we thought that Hector was to be, we had no clue. We soon find out about the real Hector. He's not just some Mexican guy finding work in a small town. He rips off his shirt. He rips off his work button-up shirt that was over his white muscle shirt. And you can see this huge shitty tattoo that he got in jail across his chest that says El Cabron, which means the motherfucker. Now, Hector Sanchez was his fake ID name. His real name is Benito Juarez, from a small city deep in Mexico, where he is wanted for the murders of 5 people and 4 other murders across the United States that he's on the run hiding from. Back to the story. In a rage, Hector starts browsing the lost and found in the back. He finds a black leather coat. He grabs some black face paint and a skull mask off the shelf. He throws on the jacket and smears the black all over his face and throws the mask on. Next, his eyes scan the room for a weapon. He finds in the closet a crowbar, a box cutter, and a hammer. Staring at them, he says, yes, this will work. He then drags Julian to his El Camino out back, propping him up in the seat, and they head out smoking the tires. The duo drive all over town in search of this house party where everyone who's anyone was at, but they had no luck finding it. He then pulls up to the Halloween Havoc concert haunted house to look around, but knowing that Trent might be there too, and they're supposed to be at work. We get into the concert. He walks around the venue to the back and sneaks in. He quickly scans the crowded, loud place and spots Trent with a group, all watching this goth band play. Now, Hector didn't want to get seen being out of work, so he starts to hurry out. As he gets close to the doors, he glances up at the balcony and had to do a double take. He could have sworn he seen the mascot from work, but nothing was there. After burning a tank of gas, he brings Julian to his apartment to watch over him. The next night, Julian is walking better and still in his ravaged outfit, looking like Jason Voorhees, still with a cracked mask on his face with parts sticking in the wounds. It hides his disfigured Frankenstein face. Hector attempted to place ice over his jaw, but that was no help. He has been talking to Julian, convincing him that they need to get revenge on these kids. The night is young, and Hector calls in sick to work for the both of them, leaving Trent to run the store alone. This is the next night. Hector then gets ready, throwing on his trench coat and painting his face with a cheap paint and mask. His Frankenstein monster standing aside him, looking and sounding like a real monster, only being able to moan and follow Hector's commands as they head out in search of one of the teens. Off they go, headed to the few town hangouts where these guys could be. While driving there, the radio station was on in the car, and a news report comes on about a murder at the concert last night. Victim, identified as a white female named Tammy Strange, found, stabbed to death. Now, Hector had no idea who that was by name, and Julian was halfway passed out in the ride to hear that his mother is now dead. They pull up to the bowling alley and park at the back corner. While Hector is glued watching the front door, he happens to see something out the corner of his eye towards the back of the building. It's a tall black figure with an orange head, which looked like the Jacko's mascot again from work. He paid no mind since it's Halloween and everyone's dressed up. Then he notices one of the guys walking out the back of the bowling alley, sweet talking a girl trying to get it on in the alley. Hector says, "Julian, are you ready?" Terrified, the boy moans, which means yeah. They head out around back, approaching the dumpster, plotting. While this kid is close to getting it on, Hector quietly tiptoes and pulls out his box cutter. He's on the other side of the dumpster. He gets down on his hands and knees, looking under to see where the feet are on the other side of the boy and the girl. He begins to crawl around quietly till he gets to the corner where they are, just arm's distance. He reaches back with the box cutter and slices the boy's calves, bringing him to his knees, and the girl starts screaming like crazy. Till the monster, standing over 6 feet, grabs her by the throat from behind and slams her unconscious. Now, the back alley is dark and narrow. Not a soul can see or hear them. The boy is kicking and screaming in pain on the ground. Hector kicks him in the mouth, saying, "Shut up, cabron. Where's your buddies? Where's your fucking pussy friends?" The kid acts like he's clueless, and Hector points to the monster, saying, "Remember him?" The kid looks at the ugly thing and in shock at how he's still alive. He starts yelling for help. Julian places his disgusting foot over the kid's face to shut him up, and Hector says with the most evil, devilish look, "Do it! Kill him, Julian, now!" The boy did not have evil in his soul and never wanted to harm anyone. Hector yelled again while holding the box cutter up to the boy's neck, saying, "If you don't listen to me, I'll cut your throat like a pig and leave you bleeding, like this piece of shit right here." All right, back to the story. He says, "I'll leave you bleeding like this piece of shit right here. Now fucking do it or else." Now the boy, being scared for his life with a box cutter to his throat, he had no choice. With tears falling behind the mask, Julian takes one big hop in the air with his huge body coming down with force, smashing the kid's face in, breaking his neck. With an evil, creepy laugh, Hector says, "Now, Julian, my boy, we leave your mark." He hands the monster his box cutter and instructs him where to carve into the face, peeling large pieces off, making the marks of a jack-o'-lantern cut out of his skin. They walk away, leaving the mutilated guy to suffer and die. The duo takes off in the El Camino in search of the other kids to finish the job off. After riding all over, they weren't successful and they call it a night. The next night, the guys show up to work waiting to see if the kids will come back to the store that night. Trent is at work yelling at them for missing the day before. He looks at Julian saying, "Who beat the shit out of you and why do you look like a stinking pile of shit?" He glances at Hector saying, "What's with the paint on your face, clown?" Which Hector cleaned off, but some of it was still remaining around his eyes. He says, nothing, I went to a spook house." Trent says, "Yeah, start mopping, bitch boy." Hector says, "You're next, puto." Trent says, "Excuse me?" Hector says, "Nothing, where's the mop?" So as the night goes on, they wait and wait for a sign of the kids. They hear on the news, on the TV up front Trent was watching, about a teen being murdered behind the bowling alley. And they cut it off, and it got cut off right before they announced that Tammy Strange was murdered also. Trent starts talking to them about some women he got phone numbers from earlier, and Hector rolls his eyes pretending to care, while Julian remains in the back of the store hiding from customers. 20 minutes later, the truck pulls up with Evan and the other boy. They walk in with red, watery eyes from shedding tears over the friend that was found dead. They've been drinking away the pain. Trent checks them out, asking what's up. As they explain, Hector is behind the comic rack listening as to where they're headed. Soon as the boys leave, Hector grabs Julian and hits the back door without telling Trent. Now, Trent's sitting at the counter. He looks up to see the El Camino hauling ass with Julian in the car. He yells, "Motherfuckers." The duo heads right to the location where he heard them say that they was going to drink away the night over the friend's death at the pumpkin patch. My narration says, "All right, folks, you've made it this far. As you can see, Chapter 4 is titled The End. Anybody notice how strange it is that the Jacko's mascot is at the scene of all these murders?" Chapter 4, The End. Hector stops his car halfway there and tells the monster, "You ready? Let's do this." Hector gets his outfit on and tells the already Frankenstein Julian, "Let's go." They walk the back way in the woods to get there quietly while Hector explains his diabolical plan to kill the two kids in the pumpkin patch. As they get closer, they see the kids parked in the middle of the patch with a small fire and music going on. There are a few scarecrows around, so Hector tells his monster to creep closer and pretend that he's one of the scarecrows. Julian continues to slowly move closer as Hector takes off around the woods to the other way, with a rope in one hand and the crowbar in the other to set up a trap. There's two guys and one girl back at the fire. Once in position, Hector sets up and snaps some sticks to get the attention of them. Evan tells the other guy to go check it out. The drunk kid heads closer to the woods to see what it was. Hector had already hung a noose over the branch about 15 yards into the woods. and as the kid entered, he was hiding behind the tree and smashes him across the head with a crowbar. Knocked out, Hector puts the noose around the kid's feet and begins to lift him up while in the air. Then, Hector beats the living shit out of him, yelling in Spanish. After a few minutes, winded, he reaches in his pocket for the box cutter and begins to carve the kid's face up like a jack-o'-lantern. Back at the fire, Evan is sitting on a log drunkenly making out with his girl. In the background, you see a tall, dark shadow getting closer. The girl hears a noise and looks around saying, "Baby, does that scarecrow look out of place to you?" Drunk and horny, the kid ignores her and continues to try and get it on. We see a dark shadow of the monster standing right above them. Quietly, he reaches down and grabs them by the hair. He smashes their faces together, busting their lips, breaking teeth, and busting their noses. They fall to the ground screaming in excruciating pain. Evan, struggling in pain, goes for his gun while Julian attacks him on the ground. Stumping his hands and head, kicking him in the ribs while the girl takes off for the truck in hopes to call the sheriff, Evan's dad. As the sheriff picks up the phone, "Hello?" You see the girl's face, then a shadow of a skull face creep behind her. All you see is one hand come over her mouth and then another come around her throat with a box cutter and slices it wide open while laughing. Blood sprays the area as he picks up the phone with his bloody hand, saying, "Can I take your order?" The sheriff gets angry, yelling, "What the hell's going on?" Hector simply says, "Do you want some candy, cabron? Ha 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 ha." He throws the phone into the woods and takes off towards the scuffle where Julian has this kid beat to shit. Meanwhile, the sheriff has the call traced for a location. All right. As Hector arrives, he commands his monster to finish him for his pure enjoyment. Julian lets out a loud moan with all of his pain coming out. He grabs the kid's head and twists it around till it snaps and his neck tears open, pouring blood. A few minutes later, the sheriff and backup arrive at the front of the highway with the lights shining deep into the patch. He gets on the horn saying, "Come out now with your hands up." Meanwhile, unfazed, Hector looks at his monster and tells him to run into the woods. He's going to cover him to escape, and they're going to meet back at the store, as you can see in this photo. It's a lot reading this. Julian heads into the woods, and instead of leaving, he hides behind some trees, watching afar as Hector grabs the kid's gun and hides behind the truck, preparing to have a shootout with the cops, knowing this may be his last battle. Stuck. While kneeling behind the truck awaiting the war, Hector looks into the sky. He closes his eyes. He has a light speed flashback of his life and all the hell he has caused in his path. Thinking, this is karma finally here to get me. As the cops surrounded him, they gave him orders to surrender, but he wasn't going out like that. Hector dreamed of the day he would go out in a blaze of glory and it was finally here. He says, fuck it. And he reached around the hood, letting off a few shots. He managed to shoot one of the cops in the neck, making the others furious. They closed in on him. Outnumbered, he had no chance. He takes off towards them, yelling and letting off as many shots as he could, but they filled him up with unlimited rounds of bullets. Sadly, from afar, Julian watched, with tears falling, as his only friend was blasted to death. The cops, they knew nothing of how many people were involved. So Julian was pretty much a free man. He took off into the woods, never to be seen or heard from again. Till this day, there are missing reward posters all over the town on the walls and the poles. Months later, a group of kids were playing hide and seek in the woods. One girl drifted a bit too far from the group, and minutes later, you heard her screaming as she ran upon something shocking. While finding her hiding spot, she walked into a headless skeleton next to a tree. I want to get this visual up of the skeleton and the kids. She walked into this headless skeleton on the ground next to the tree. It was decayed. Parts of the clothing remained. It must have been there so long that the animals and insects devoured all of the meat. All that was left was the bones. As the rest of the kids arrived to see what was wrong, one of them looked up at the tree, and hanging from the branch was a bloody, cracked mask on a skull, hanging by the neck still attached to the rope. The birds have pecked it clean to the bone. Now, as much as I hate to tell you this, that skeleton, it was Julian. When he took off into the woods after watching his friend get shot to death, the toll of being brainwashed by Hector to kill those kids, he could just not take it anymore. So he climbed the tree and he hung himself with the rope. After so long, the body fell off with the head and mask still hanging. The kids took off running to tell their parents what they had seen. In disbelief, the adults went searching to see for themselves, but after a few hours, they gave up on finding it. They were just saying that the kids were lying, making it up. No longer is this town only known for its festival. Anywhere you go in Patchville, you will hear the myth of the headless skeleton and hanging masked skull in the woods. It has become a tradition and a part of a haunted tour to search the woods for it. Until this day, it's never been seen by anyone besides those kids that initially found it. You'll even see newspaper clippings all over about the town's now famous Pumpkin Patch Murders. The end. I hope this video is all in pieces. I'm going to piece it all together and try to put it on YouTube. My throat's giving out reading this book like this. But I hope did good enough for you to be able to listen to this story. I hope you go out and grab a copy of this book just to have, to collect, to see the images that went with it. I'm not a professional writer, editor. I'm not no graphic novel illustrator to be drawing all these pages out. In the front of the book, I even wrote that out, that I'm not here to win any awards. I just wanted to get my story out that I wrote 9 years ago, my original story. In the back of the book, you'll see a mask that I posted right there. That mask, I was buying Michael Myers mask back in 2015, 16, and I was altering them to look like this mask. And then a friend of mine off of YouTube, he was like, "Dude, I'd watch a movie of that. That's pretty cool, you know." So that got my wheels turning to make a backstory for the mask. And then I wrote the story that was the Pumpkin Patch Murders. And 9 years later, I got back into the story in the book and rewrote it and added more stuff to it. Added the new characters, the Jack Boy. I wrote this story with a lot of inspiration from movies and things I've been into over the years, and I hope you enjoy the story. I love to get feedback off of the book or even some comments below. But anyway, thank you if you're still watching and listen to this whole thing and was able to understand my shitty voice and how I talk. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And share this and tell other people about it. Share my book with people if you got the book. Thank you very much.